You're probably aware that the United States borders two oceans, the Pacific and the Atlantic. But even though that fact sounds real, it's not entirely accurate. Truth is, the US actually borders three oceans: the Atlantic, Pacific, and the Arctic Ocean. That's right. We can't forget the coldest ocean in the world along the state of Alaska. That's just one of 50 US geography facts that may sound real, but aren't actually. So here's more rapid-fire US geography facts to make you scratch your head. Fact number 49. Statue of Liberty is in New York City. Think that's true? Take a closer look at the map. Truth is, the iconic Statue of Liberty is in New Jersey waters. Gifted by the French government in 1885, this monumental statue has been an icon to immigrants the world over. But when the statue was first gifted, the U.S. Geological Survey placed Liberty Island in New York's 8th Congressional District. However, if you look at a map, you'll see clearly that the statue is actually in New Jersey waters, which means this New York City tourist destination isn't where you think it is. Number 48. The easternmost U.S. state is Maine. That sounds pretty real to me, but do a quick fact check and you'll find that's not true at all. Alaska is actually the easternmost U.S. state. This is mainly due to the Aleutian Islands extending east of the 180-degree meridian, which meaning it's so far west, it's actually in the eastern hemisphere. That technically means Alaska is the easternmost state and the westernmost state, which is pretty nuts. Fact number 47. Colorado is the only triply landlocked state in the United States. Pretty close, but not true. That prize actually goes to its neighbor, Nebraska. The Cornhusker state is known as a triply landlocked state because you have to pass through at least 3 other states to reach the ocean. This means Nebraska is the only state in the entire U.S. to be able to claim that fact. Sadly, that also means Nebraskans are about as landlocked as any American can get. Fact number 46. The tallest mountain in the world is Mount Everest. Yep, this one's about as real as it sounds, unless you're measuring from below sea level. Now this one is a bit of a tricky fact, but for some, Hawaii's Mauna Kea is truly the tallest mountain in the world. Mount Everest may tower 15,100 feet above sea level, but the mighty Mauna Kea stands an astonishing 32,808 feet tall from below the ocean's surface. Fact 45. Mount McKinley is the tallest mountain in the United States. Sound true? Sort of. Check again. Denali is the actual tallest mountain in the US, and it's actually the exact same place. This towering mountain has a summit of 20,310 feet above sea level, but is only commonly known as Mount McKinley. The actual official name is Denali. As of 2015, when President Barack Obama's administration changes the mountain's official name to bring it in order with the Alaska Geographic Board's designation. Fact 45. Mount McKinley is the tallest mountain in the United States. Sound true? Sort of. Check again. Denali is the actual tallest mountain in the US, and it's actually the exact same place. This towering mountain has a summit of 20,310 feet above sea level, but is only commonly known as Mount McKinley. The official name is Denali. As of 2015, when President Barack Obama's administration changes the mountain's official name to bring it in order with the Alaska Geographic Board's designation. Number 44. The Grand Canyon is the largest canyon in the US. This definitely sounds real, given the canyon's popularity, but you have to dig a little deeper if you want the truth. Reality is, Hell's Canyon along the Oregon and Idaho border is 7,993 feet deep and up to 10 miles wide, which is definitely deeper than the Grand Canyon. The Snake River carves this remote chasm, which is renowned for world-class whitewater rafting and ancient petroglyphs. Fact number 43. The Mississippi River is the longest river in the United States. Almost, but not quite true. The popular and famous river may have you thinking it's the longest, but it falls short by just a few miles. Truth is, The Missouri River is slightly longer at 2,540 miles compared to the Mississippi's 2,340 miles. Fact number 42. The biggest sand dunes in the U.S. are in Utah. It may sound pretty real, considering Utah's dry, arid climate and desert landscape. Truth is, the tallest sand dunes in the U.S. are actually in the state of Colorado. Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve has dunes reaching a shocking height of 750 feet tall. You might think of snow-capped mountains when thinking of Colorado, but these dunes look like they could be plucked right out of the Arabian Desert. Number 41. The largest U.S. state park is in Texas. Not exactly. While the massive Lone Star State may seem like the perfect place for the largest state park, it's not even close. Alaska is the true home of the largest state park. Wood-Tikchik State Park spans an amazing 1.57 million acres. That's roughly the size of Delaware. Number 40. Texas borders the most U.S. states. It's huge, so that must be true, right? Nope. Tennessee and Missouri are tied for having the most neighbors at 8 bordering states each. Number 39. Minnesota has the largest freshwater lake entirely within one state. You'd think the land of 1,000 lakes must hold that title, but it doesn't. Truth is, Alaska's Lake Iliamna is the 7th largest lake in the United States, at 77 miles long, and the entire thing is freshwater. Number 38. Speaking of lakes, did you know the Great Salt Lake is America's saltiest lake? That's mostly true, but it varies so much it may not be entirely accurate. The Great Salt Lake has a salinity that ranges wildly from 5% to an extreme 27% total dissolved salts. Mono Lake in California, on the other hand, is much more consistent with saline levels, clocking in at roughly 8.5% to 10% dissolved salts, which is roughly 3 times saltier than the ocean. Number 37. Maine borders multiple states. Well, you might think that's the case, but check again. Truth is, Maine is the only state in the entire continental U.S. that only borders a single state. That means if you were to take a road trip through the lower 48, passing through each state only once, you would always end in Maine. Fact number 36. Los Angeles has always just been L.A. Actually, not exactly. It used to have a much longer name. Historians dispute what the first settlers called the city, but they can at least agree it was longer than L.A. According to the city of Los Angeles, it was first known as El Pueblo de Nuestra Señora de Los Angeles de Porciuncula, but eventually shortened because, well, that was quite the mouthful. Number 35. New York City is among the first and last places to celebrate New Year's Eve. One might think so, considering the famous Times Square ball drop, except that's not actually true. One place you can do that in the United States is within the nation of Samoa. Despite occupying opposite sides of the 180th meridian, Amatignac Island and Semisipokno Island aren't a full day apart. The Aleutian Islands in Hawaii all fall within the Hawaii-Aleutian time zone, which doesn't correspond with neat longitudinal lines. If you have access to a boat, you can celebrate the planet's first New Year's in Samoa and experience one of the last celebrations in American Samoa. Fact 34. Arizona doesn't participate in daylight savings. Well, yes and no. While the state of Arizona doesn't observe daylight savings to try and cut back on desert sun, the Navajo Nation within the state does follow daylight savings time. For over half of the year, Arizona is home to a daylight saving donut, where the Navajo Nation is an hour ahead of the land inside and around it. Number 33. Maine is west of Paris, France. Now, that may seem obvious, but if you take a closer look, Maine is also south of Paris. Escort Station, Maine may be the northernmost community in the state, but compared to much of Europe, it's not that high on the map. London, Paris, Brussels, and Amsterdam are all further north than the Pine Tree State. Fact number 32. Most of the Canadian population lives north of the United States. Yes, of course that's true. But what's also true is that most of Canada lives south of Seattle. 60% of Seattle's population of about 40 million people live below Seattle's latitude. Both Toronto and Montreal, Canada's biggest metros, fall below the Washington city. That means huge swaths of the country are largely uninhabited. Number 31. Every single state has county-level governments. Actually, you might be surprised to learn that the state of Connecticut is the only state in the United States where counties have no independent government and are merely geographical regions on a map. Legislation passed in 1959 and 1961 removed the duties and functions of the state's 8 counties. Fact number 30. Georgia is one of the flattest states. Nope, not even close. In fact, Georgia is the only U.S. state that is home to the geographic region known as the Ridge and Valley Appalachians, where ridges and valleys run parallel to each other. This unique topographical feature, located in the northwestern part of the state, distinguishes Georgia from the other U.S. states. Fact number 29. Speaking of flatness, did you know Idaho isn't that flat? Actually, it is. The truth is, researchers have scientifically proven that it's technically flatter than a pancake. In a 2003 study by geographers at Texas State University and Arizona State University, a topographical analysis found that the flatness of the state is indeed greater in some areas than that of a pancake. While the study was intended as a humorous response to the saying flat as a pancake, it also highlighted how subtle differences in topography can be measured using geographic analysis and digital elevation models. Fact number 28. Colorado has some of the highest and lowest points in the United States. Actually, not even close. In fact, Colorado is the only U.S. state where every point lies at least 3,280 feet or 1,000 meters above sea level. Its high average elevation reflects the state's position within the Rocky Mountains and Colorado Plateau, giving Colorado the highest mean elevation of any state. Number 27. California is the only state with both beaches and deserts. We've all heard how diverse the state of California's ecosystems can be, but it's actually not the only state where you can surf and ride your dune buggy through the desert. The states of Oregon, Washington, and Texas also have both beaches and deserts. Number 26. Arizona is America's hottest state. We all think of Arizona's sprawling deserts of cracked, dry earth and can only imagine the heat. Places in Arizona easily hit temps over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's still not the hottest place in the US. On average, Florida is actually warmer year-round. Number 24. Nevada is east of Los Angeles, California. Actually, that's not technically true. In fact, the city of Reno, Nevada is technically west of Los Angeles because the Pacific coast angles sharply to the southeast. Driving straight south from Reno, Nevada will drop you into the Pacific Ocean, hundreds of miles west of Los Angeles. Fact number 23. The closest U.S. state to Africa is Florida. Nope, not true. The state that's actually closest to Africa is Maine. Thanks to the curvature of the Earth, Quadi Head in Maine is roughly 3,150 miles from El Borja, Morocco, making it the closest point in the contiguous U.S. to Africa. Fact number 22. The U.S. city of Detroit is south of Canada. That may sound real, but it's not actually the case. Detroit is actually north of Canada. That's right. If you are standing in downtown Detroit, Michigan, and drive directly south, the first foreign country you hit is Windsor, Canada. Fact number 21. Russia is on the other side of the world compared to the US. This may seem obvious, but it's not actually the case. The Diomede Islands, known in Russia as the Ostrova, are 2 islands in the Bering Strait that are only 2.5 miles away from the United States. Fact number 20. If you want to get to New York from Stamford, Connecticut, you'd head west. Well, sort of. All cardinal directions from Stamford, Connecticut actually lead to New York State. This may sound impossible, but Stamford is the only city in the United States where traveling in all 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, or west, initially leads to the exact same state, New York. Fact number 19. The US doesn't have any complex cave systems. Actually, it does. In fact, Kentucky's Mammoth Cave is the world's longest known cave system. The cave boasts over 426 miles of mapped passageways. Even more shocking, the end of the cave still hasn't been found. Park officials and geologists estimate that hundreds of miles more still remain undiscovered or unmapped beneath the Green River Valley. Fact number 18. Living organisms in the United States are far smaller compared to many of the living organisms found in countries around the rest of the world. That may sound true for our relatively young nation, but it's actually not the case at all. In fact, the largest living organism on Earth is a group of 80,000-year-old aspens called Pando, the trembling giant, and he lives right in Richfield, Utah. Pando is a series of around 47,000 quivering aspen trees standing in a grove. They are all connected via a single root system and share the same DNA. Fact number 17. Key West, Florida is the southernmost point in the United States. Think again. While it's true that Key West is the southernmost point in the lower 48, it's not even close to being the southernmost point in the United States. For that, you'll need to look 6 degrees of latitude further south and a long, long way west into the Pacific Ocean. If you haven't figured it out by now, of course this would be the state of Hawaii. The southernmost point in the U.S. is the southern tip of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, where you'll find Kale. Fact number 16. 41 states in the U.S. have a larger population than any U.S. city or county. As real as that may sound, it's actually not quite true. It may be hard to believe, but Los Angeles County actually has a larger population than 41 states combined. With an insane population of 10.04 million people as of 2019, LA County is by far the most populous county in the United States and also one of the largest. It's pretty insane to think that one county could hold that many people. LA manages to do it. Fact number 15. It'll take hours and hours of flying to reach anywhere from Alaska. Now, this may be true to an extent, but the incredible thing about Anchorage, Alaska, is that it's actually so centrally located in the northern hemisphere that it would take less than 10 hours to reach any city in the world. Anchorage is the only city on the planet that can claim this fact. So what makes Anchorage so special? Not only does Anchorage have a major international airport, but it's also the closest major international airport to either pole. Anchorage's proximity to the North Pole makes it very quick and easy to fly over the pole to reach the other side of the world. Fact number 14. California has a longer coastline than any other state in the conventional United States. You might think so, given its unique shape. It also stretches almost the entire length of the U.S. mainland. But if you look closely, the state with the actual longest coastline is none other than Maine. At 3,478 miles, Maine's coastline is longer than California's 3,427 miles. Pretty close, but a win's a win. By the way, the state with the longest in general is Alaska. Its sprawling shoreline stretches for 33,904 miles, which is pretty crazy considering how much shorter the continental U.S. coast is. Fact number 13. The United States has, on average, the longest rivers in the world. Well, we do have some pretty long rivers, considering the Missouri and the Mississippi. On the other hand, we also have the shortest river in the entire world, according to the Guinness Book of World Records. That prize goes to the Roe River in Montana. The mighty Roe ranges only about 200 feet long. That's a pretty stark contrast to the Missouri at 2,341 miles, or the Mississippi at 2,202 miles. The river runs alongside the Giant Springs State Park on one side, and the mighty Missouri River on the other. Number 12. The United States' largest cities are in New York and California. Shockingly, that's not necessarily true. If you're considering the most sprawling cities, the true largest cities in the U.S. would be in Alaska. Given Alaska's low population densities, there's plenty of room for the cities to spread out. That means by surface area, to population ratio, the Alaskan cities are far larger than LA, Phoenix, Houston, and every other major city in the lower 48. For example, city of Juneau is larger than Rhode Island and Delaware combined, and the winner, Yakutat, is larger than 8 other states. Number 11. People in the US only drive on the right side of the road. That's mostly true and sounds real, but it's not exactly accurate. If an American wants a taste of driving on the left side of the road without leaving the United States, all they have to do is head to the US Virgin Islands. This is the only jurisdiction in the United States where you drive on the left. But unlike other locations that drive on the left, most cars in the US VI are imported from the mainland US and still have the steering wheel on the left side of the car, which can cause quite the confusion if you're not used to it. Fact number 10. New York City is so small by landmass that it only has a few zip codes. Sounds pretty believable. It would be logical, except for the fact that zip codes are based on postal routes, and delivery to the Big Apple is no easy feat. In fact, the truth is there are more than 40 buildings in New York City with their own unique zip code. The Empire State, Chrysler, and MetLife buildings are just a few that can claim exclusive rights to their own unique zip code. Manhattan itself, the most crowded of New York City's 5 boroughs, is so cramped that it has more than 300 zip codes. Fact number 9. None of the US capital names rhyme. Interestingly enough, this fact is almost as true as it sounds. Of course, it's not, because of Boston and Austin. These 2 cities are the only state capitals in the entire US that have rhyming names. Number 8. The United States has double the residents that Canada has. Sound real to you? Well, sorry, but it's not exactly true. In fact, the state of California alone has more residents than the entire nation of Canada. Back in 2015, Canadians celebrated reaching a population of 36 million people for the first time. That was still 3 million short of the Golden State's population of roughly 39 million people. California also happens to be the most populous state in the country. Fact number 7. You can only reach Russia by boat or plane. Nope, not exactly true. Shockingly enough, you can actually walk to Russia if you truly wanted, but only during a certain time of the year. During the winter, the water freezes between the 2 islands named Big and Little Diomede. Big Diomede is the easternmost part of the Russian Federation. Its neighbor, Little Diomede, is a part of Alaskan territory. When the water freezes in the winter, brave travelers can cross the short distance, about 2.5 miles, between the 2 islands. Do so at your own risk, though. While experts say making the journey is theoretically possible, it is dangerous and not recommended. Fact number 6. The southwestern U.S. states have always been a desert. When you think of the Old West in the U.S., you might think of cacti, sweeping deserts, and rock structures in an arid landscape, but that's definitely not what it always looked like. The truth is that during a period called the last glacial maximum, over 20,000 years ago, the states of Nevada, Utah, and California contained bodies of water so huge they rivaled the Great Lakes. Over time, the giant lakes evaporated as global temperatures began to rise, until they eventually disappeared altogether, or shrank into smaller bodies of water. Fact number 5. The US is only bordered by Canada and Mexico. Technically true today, but what about 250 million years ago? Back there, the US was part of a supercontinent called Pangaea. The landmass eventually broke apart to form the 7 continents as we know them today. Now, 250 million years later, geologists have discovered a chunk of Africa that's stuck around in North America. It's located under Alabama and runs through several southeastern states. Fact number 4. Coffee is grown all over the US. While that sounds like a perfectly reasonable fact, the surprising truth is that only one US state grows coffee. Sorry, coffee lovers, but the only place you'll find coffee beans growing in the United States is Hawaii. And even more surprisingly, the pineapples that made Hawaii famous were originally imported there from South America, and Florida used to be the primary US pineapple state. Number 3. What's more American than the Golden Arches? Yes, we're talking about McDonald's. In fact, every US capital has a McDonald's. Actually, that's not totally true. There's only one U.S. capital left without a McDonald's. That would be Montpelier, Vermont. It also happens to be the smallest U.S. capital, which could explain its lack of Big Macs. Number 2. The United States. Borders two countries. Of course, that sounds real. We can all assume the U.S. borders Canada and Mexico, but did you know the United States also technically borders Russia, Cuba, and the Bahamas if we include the ocean borders? Fact number 1. The United States' largest rainforest is in the tropical climate of Florida. That's actually not the case. Shockingly, Alaska's Tongass National Forest is the largest temperate rainforest in the U.S., covering 16.7 million acres. Actually, it's also the largest rainforest in the world. Its dense old-growth forests and abundant wildlife make it a vital ecological treasure, though it faces threats from logging and climate change. There you have it. 50 U.S. geography facts that may sound like they're real, but actually aren't true at all. How many of these did you already know? And which two surprised you the most or were your favorite? Leave us a comment below and be sure to subscribe for more mind-blowing geographical facts.